I'm going to start with the fact that it all changed a bit last year. Once we'd submitted this, we had this kind of new idea about technology. I'm going to talk, I think, more from a practitioner's point of view here. So rather than kind of my research hats, it's more about an account of practice. But I think there's some kind of useful things here for you guys. So I started with this idea that how we use a lot of technology in our collective, called artist developers. And I started with this idea that digital technologies are not delightful. So I'm going to talk through that. Can you just give me 1 second? I'm going to get my timer going. I have also got a terrible sense of time. There we go. Sorry, guys. There we go. So before I start as well, I have ADHD, I'm dyslexic, I also have a PhD and I'm a senior lecturer. I point this out because sometimes sometimes I have little blanks, so just so you know, you're going to have to adapt to it, and this will come clear why. So technologies are not delightful, right? Digital technology structure delightful experiences, and we're going to talk about a particular case study we did as a collective, kind of from my perspective because it's me that's here. So my background really quickly is I'm an artist. I was a performance artist for a while. I've run a successful radio sound system for 20 years. I've done everything from being a Mariah Carey drag act to making, I don't know, research projects at the Tate for kids with Tourette's. In my research, I focus on creating accessible spaces for people and play. My PhD was in ethnography with special needs schools. How we develop, participatory design methods for designing technology for classrooms. And this will kind of become relevant in a minute. I'm not just talking about stuff here. I like that. So just briefly, I'm a senior lecturer at the Centre for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Bristol. We have a unique course that takes 30 different disciplines, brings them together, they work, it's a third of the degree, so it's like a minor major in an American. They work together in transdisciplinary groups, we call them. You know, it might be physics, it might be childcare, it might be someone from English, who do design-led work. So a lot of my research, a lot of my art is around design-led research methods. So there's an example here where I did something with Rex Hero, where we took over the whole of Tate Britain and became researchers for the day, which was based on some other research. So my point here is, my work is about getting other people to do brilliant things, and it's about thinking about communities and places specifically. So I thought it's quite appropriate here. Now, I was asked in, God, I'm also awful with dates, so I may get some of these wrong. I think it was 2016 originally, to put together a collective of artists and designers to go to the Arctic in Norway, and I'll talk about that in a minute, to this place. Best thing ever. I think Norwegian Art Council, so they kind of had that kind of funding. So the idea was to bring kind of scientists, artists, designers together to think about the landscape via this kind of funding. I think we used to have that kind of funding. I don't think we do anymore. They're like, oh, we don't have much, just, you know, maybe 20 grand to do stuff. So it's interesting to be able to work with other countries and work. But the project I'm going to talk about today is a project called Leviathan. The Leviathan kind of stretches over a few years, lots of different venues, and I'm going to try and do this as quickly as possible. There's lots more, and I can share this afterwards, but we were invited to go to Nordland of Melbu, which is one of the most beautiful end of the earth places in the entire world I've ever been. It's just on the edge, actually just in the kind of Arctic Circle, right on the very tip of Norway. I was asked to put a group together. It's interesting, I teach at the Centre for Innovation. At the time I was running a digital media course at UE. I have a weird background in arts, digital media, teaching, PhDs, blah, blah, blah. But I had to kind of pull people together. So I brought a master's student from the Digital Fine Art Camberwell Masters, the way I was teaching, which was Keir and Rhiannon. The other guys I've kind of worked with quite extensively, 2 of them on a PhD, the other 2 personally on arts projects. So just going to go through them really quickly because they're not here. Rhiannon is a community-based artist. She went to St Martin's. Her superpower is she can communicate and work with anybody she ever meets in any situation, which we'll see soon. Joe Perez of the Whole is a scenographer, digital scenographer, so he builds theatre, set, puppets, you name it. As Helps is similar. She's currently building a big dinosaur and robot exhibition for the Natural History Museum. She did a lot of stuff with Punch Drunk, did a lot of their VR set designs, kind of theatre stuff. Dave is an amazing acoustic artist, makes beautiful, amazing sets using sound and robots for kids with special needs. Me, background in sort of fine art, again, sort of creation of people is what I would say, but also digital performance and sort of scenography. Everyone who it was again a student, but also a photographer. Right. Got the keep together. We're like going to go to this place that we've never been to on the edge of the earth. No idea what we're going to do, and we were based here, which is Meckin Fish Oil Factory. It's the first fishing. It's the first. What is it? Industrial fishing and processing plant in the. Got a lot of history around this kind of Nordic idea of being international to support local, which we quite like, and we'll go on to a little bit. But we were based in this giant tank on the right there. So it's called Meckin Pool. If anyone knows anything about sound, basically, if you clap, it's got a 23-second delay response, which means it echoes for 23 seconds. It's the weirdest thing. It's like a super cathedral when you're in it. And it smells of oil, fish oil when it gets hot. There's constant oil in there. Basically, we got given a house into this residency. We were there for about 10 days. We have to think, and I think fortunately for the person who was organising it, we're like, we think through making. We're all practitioners. We design, we make, we do, right? So we got this house, we put dinners together, and we started playing with the things we had. So I did some projection, we did some light experiments, some sculpture with driftwood. We started making some light experiments with beauty. We were introduced in Norway to these two performers. So one is a composer called Melbu, and I apologise, my Icelandic and Norwegian is not great. Rhiannon, who's a classical guitarist, she creates music in these places. So she's been caves under them. We've written a special piece for her. So, I just want to go back a little bit. Do this. So, sorry, bear with me. So, it's quite difficult when you're pasting. They wanted to sort of explore the landscape, see how we might be able to support maybe local people, think about local history. Nothing, pretty vague, to be honest. Whereas what we thought is, what we wanted to achieve is we wanted to consider the landscape, we were resident within, and the people that were in it, and the stories. And we also wanted to bring our practices and the things we make into that. So process and as things. Right? We wanted to delight people, I think, is the thing that we're all, you know, you want to impress, engage, excite, because it's art, right? You can talk about it, you can produce it, but if it's not engaging, it's not art to an extent. Thirdly, we wanted to stage people's ideas. Like, it's not like we're going to give them voice necessarily. We want to stage ideas and ways of doing things. So, go back. Excuse me. So, interesting, it's got the oldest refugee centre in Norway. So we had this chance, and again, this was really led by Rhiannon, who's our sort of, you know, I say community like it's a bad word. This community artist, she's brilliant, and I mean that in the best possible way. Sometimes there's this like oh, community artist, she's incredible. She worked with these theories groups. So there's groups from sort of mostly Eritrea. There's quite a lot of Syrian kind of refugees, but these people have just, you know, traveled 20 countries to arrive here, often without family. We worked with them. So we talked to them, we had a few methods, we were working through diaries, doing drawing to kind of put out some stories, really. These are used with permission, but everyone's been blurred out and names are different, just so you know. Because, you know, obviously, and I'll talk about this a bit, the ethical process is really key in kind of work. We worked with a local primary school. We had a million different people just knock on the door and say hello. Someone once gave us a bag of chanterelles this big, swear to God. It was like, hi, I am, and then told us a story about the sea. So this guy invited us to the oldest church in that part of Norway. Dave, who's a sound recordist and kind of acoustic designer, created this. Oh, sorry. This guy though, has ended up being our best friend. You know, he was the son of the vicar. Anyway, set ourselves up to go and meet lots of people. We went to the house that was next to the church, and we met this woman who's a local historian, right? And I'm just going to play you a little bit from this.
There is a window towards the sea where people went back and forwards to look for their families at sea when the weather was bad, and they walked there so many times that there is a pot on the floor.
So just to be clear there, right? She was talking about there's houses in Norway where you have worn down roofs, which is where kind of, I mean, traditionally it would have been women waiting for husbands to come back from the sea, right? So, sorry, bear with me. So interestingly, we were working with this group as well. And then again, this is to Rhiannon's sort of super skill, superpower, really, to say this ability to draw out stories from people. She often uses diaries, she uses things like Periscope, which was kind of prevalent at the time. That really simple technologies that are accessible. So we're having this conversation with this guy later on, and we're sort of talking about this story. And this guy brings up the fact that he waits for his family every day to turn up, like at the ferry port, right? Because he lost his he lost his sister, and the rest of his family is there waiting across the sea. We just have this moment where we're like, well, you know, there's two stories here that have a relationship, right? Again, being cautious here, we're not always saying, oh, look, there's these brilliant things, they're just the same, your story's exactly the same. But we just thought this is a really nice point where we found this kind of similarity between this historical position here, right, of, you know, Norway and this, you know, recently arrived dude waiting for his family. Interestingly, while she was doing this performance, right, she was also on Periscope with a guy in Syria who was fighting at the time, literally. It was the most bizarre thing. Dude was there like, hi, yeah, talked about it. Like, oh, yeah, we stream this sometimes. So we're talking about these stories, this guy's there, kind of by father going out, you know, gunshots in the background. It's these clashes that we sort of tried to set up, but it's also quite scary.
There is a window to.
Now, we were quite interested in this idea of Nordland. Really taken by this word. I still probably won't get this right because I'm not Norwegian. I've done a presentation in Norwegian, so like, it's this idea of kind of community, bringing people together, you do things together, this coziness, this kind of joy of being communal, right? It's a great idea, isn't it? It's lovely. And we thought, you know, bringing all these stories together. So this is when I get to the bit where we did something with a lot of this material. So each of us produced just a ton of stuff. So hundreds of videos, photography, we went swimming, we did like, what else did we have? We had sculptures, and I'll show you some of this bit. We had poems being written, we had, weirdly, the European Minister for Norway dropped in, we gave a talk about stuff doing. It was one of these amazing things. Oh yeah, there was a weird gastro restaurant in the middle of this thing as well. So we met the guy who's chefs and, you know, local farms. Anyway, it's insane 10 days. But we wasn't really conscious that we were paid to go here and we needed to make something. We have to do that. So just want to go through a little bit of a story that Rhiannon wrote that I think for me was one of my favorite pieces, right? So she wrote a blog every day, really simple, almost haiku, right? I'm just going to read this out. So, Keir writes plans in my notebook, which was a gift. Structures and projections combine and evolve. So in this point, we're inside the big tank, we're building this giant driftwood sculpture that Joe's making, we're projection mapping onto it, getting sound going. Mythical moving, and then disappointment, tangible, no repair possible, no plans change. Materials transfer from Hackney, personal and digital stuff this time. So we had this insane lighting rig to produce this beautiful scintillating light across this giant cavernous space. We 20 years developing technology for it, and it just didn't work. There was a black box, it didn't work. They were like, we can send you one. We were like, we're in the Arctic. They were like, nah, we can't do that. My favorite picture of Dave, sorry Dave, if you see this, but it's Dave looking pointing at a door looking really cross because we were working crazy days there. So we're like, oh, okay, so we put all this kind of angst and pain into this technology to make this thing really exciting and beautifully engaging. If we think back to the kind of key core ideas, you know, one of the things is to delight and amaze, but one of the things is to stage people's ideas and actually create. And I think what's nice in a way about this is we suddenly went, all right, let's just do what we do. We don't need LEDs, that's not what we're making here. So she said, I like this. I work with simplest technology. It's only late, still bright at midnight. Oh yeah, it's midnight sun. So we didn't get dark, which probably adds a whole other level. We probably worked an extra 5 hours a day easily. It's insane. We also went in the Northern Lights on another trip, but birds call, oyster catcher, looping in, the hunting curlew. That was the house we stayed in, which was reserved for life. Okay, so actually let me just go back. So what we did produce in the end was a concert. We gathered materials, so that included projections. We did researching from the archives that they've had there, some of the imagery and symbols that have been used. We had recordings of stories. We had recording of radio chatter across the Atlantic, which is one of the things that we were using in terms of trade and thinking. And this conceit came to us, right? But if we just, I'm going to submit that really quickly. Go back to this. The idea was that this, which is the kind of Neptune fish factory, is actually a giant octopus, Leviathan, and that this sits on the back of it. Right, so that we are when we're inside the tank, we're inside this Leviathan, basically, this kind of deep sea thing. So that's what we had in our heads as kind of the theme. Done all these experiments, we've done some of the work. We had this kind of soundscape where we started to produce. And so we made this piece. It's really hard to document, but I'm going to give you a bit of a sense. So we had a concert where we had this playing, right? And what we did is we took all these materials, bits of sound, imagery, objects, seaweed. We had an algorithm that basically would mix these short pieces of videos, and it would mix bits of sound across, I think it was 12 speaker array, so it was, you know, surround sound. And we also had people walk around with little speakers, Bluetooth speakers that would send different tracks around. Now the idea was we used this kind of, if they algorithm, it was a kind of little program we made that said use bits of these. Obviously we had some control of that, so it gave a bit of randomness to how this was produced. You know, it would never play the same thing twice. A certain video would be playing a bit poetry on the wall, you know, a sound would come in. So we did the concert that was straight, and then that was just installed for like, I think 4 or 5 days afterwards before we had to leave, and people could just walk in and experience it. So this is a video of part of that. It's quite hard to capture. So I'm just going to start now.
You need to leave everything behind.
Turkey and Greek, after Macedonia and Serbia and Croatia and Hungary and Austria and Germany and Sweden and Norway.
There is a window towards the sea where people went back and forwards to look for their families at sea. The weather was bad, and they walked there so many times that there is a part on the floor.
It's kind of hard to see.
The same coin with different faces.
This is the thing. The almost palette there, which we get some that from different sides, and then we get this feeling as well, which is this giant. Just to get a bit of sense, we have poetry kind of being played in, etc. So I'm going to come back to you, right? That was one of the performances we've created for this, and I'll share a little bit what else we've done. But I just want to come back to this idea of technology is delight, right? So technology isn't delightful. Technology and the use of technology. So this could be a plate of tools, might be technology. It could be a pen as much as it could be, you know, a computer. Technology structures our experiences, right? And for us, I want to think specifically, what did it do? Well, it helped us literally document from people. It allowed us to get there. It allowed us to record, use periscope. It allowed us to think. We use technology to kind of, as part of a creative process, and again, include that in terms of sculpture through different ways of thinking, ideas to collect data. And we use technology to stage it in the end, right? Now, I just want to come back to this, right? I find I worked in participatory arts, and I think I've been guilty of this a lot. What we didn't do was like emancipate people and provide them with a voice that truly, you know, resonates with their landscape, right? What we did was take a snippet and produce something that was taken from our experience. You know, those refugees are refugees, right? They're not suddenly, because they said that one snippet in a thing, their lives are better. And I think for us, it's recognizing that. But what we did do is bring joy. We did bring a moment where ideas were shared. We had loads of experiences. Frankly, we produced something beautiful, which I think is never a bad thing. So, really quickly, because I know I'm a bit out of time, we've done maybe 5 years of this in different places. This include Pit Rivers, the Oilgraph Festival at the Story Museum, and an old bank vault, the Oxford Christmas lights. We did the Merge Festival with the Curious, where we worked with Norway and a group in, I'm going to forget the name of it because my brain's going. Big Port in Bristol. Avonmouth, there we go, Avonmouth Community Centre and Refugees. We were at British Council and Region Council, going back again soon, hopefully. But just going to play this. So one of our guys, I know 30 seconds over, I'm sorry, but Joe Holt, who is one of our collective, one of the things he produced over the years was just, he's done this kind of beautiful set of poetry that relates to kind of the tides and how we move across between these projects in a way. So one of the things I didn't pick up on is this place is the end of the Gulf Stream. We're kind of mid in England, and we're trying to do something in Mexico to link them. But this is just a few examples and a bit of poetry that he's kind of created around this. It's a bit sort of, yeah. And I'll talk through some of the photos.
My leaf, my mobile handset, sleek and cracked, mine, password.
This is the project we did for a light festival, where Alex helps create these underwater sculptures you can only see by putting it into seawater.
A self-determined virtual pathway, Al Gore leading the rhythm, sport and social flick past, a lonesome network, a past time.
We got students, local schools create themselves in the sea.
Pirates whitewashed beyond the pale, washed out to see
this was
the
a war memorial
taste,
hot
off the real.
My
portal to
that was one of the installations we had at
polarized opinion, flesh and tepid partisan heartbreak.
Okay, so I'm going to stop there. I just wanted to say thank you for inviting me. I'm always, and the collective are always really interested in working with anyone and everyone. I use all of this in my teaching. We have students at every single one of these, including the artists.